Greetings, salutations, and hello, I'm Try. I had originally intended to do this video up on World Backup Day, which would have been the 31st. Unfortunately, I am filming on the 1st. Who's that joke on? Due to the fact of World Backup Day, I want to bring up a concept that is very important: backing up your data. This could be done with things like, say you have a drive dock somewhere and you want to set an old hard drive. From there, you could just put a whole bunch of data on there. However, it is limited to a certain amount of data, which is whatever your device is, and very limited to the devices that you've shared on. Proper backing up method is called the 3-2-1 method, which allows you to have 3 copies of a file, 2 on site, preferably 1 not. This allows for, say, look at a couple of months back when LA had their fires. Anything that was on site is probably not usable. But if you stored at, say, a parent's place or something like that is miles away, you now have a backup. Thus, a backup. Now, for someone like me who's been doing data storage for quite a long time, I started my first file server back in the XP days. Yeah. Uh, if the hair didn't give you a good idea, I'm old. Old enough that I'm not telling you, young enough I will tell you off for mentioning it, but I'm trying to be polite. Now, an idea would be something like a what I called a moment ago a file server. A more modern term is called a NAS, which is network attached storage, which is a dedicated server for, well, originally for just storing your files. It's just basically a hard drive that anybody on a network that is given permission to can hook up to. You can also get something called a SAN, which is storage attached network or attached to network. I've never been sure of that one. But that is like an array of drives and whatnot that is specifically set up for being used as a specific storage to a system. It's got a weirder system. I'm going to have to research that one later on. I could be wrong. Feel free to correct me. I believe in criticism or instruction is valued. If I'm wrong, call me out on it. Never had a problem with it. However, let's continue on before I get too distracted because I have a really bad habit of that. Now, a network attached storage. This could be anywhere from, say, one of the Synology boxes that you see often. The ones from Ugreen that are making the rounds with various YouTubers like Tech Syndicate, Level 1 Techs. Wendell, hi! I'd like to meet you one day, but not at this standing. I'm probably just as awkward as you are when dealing with people, and good enough. However, again, see, squirrel. Need I say more? You can also get it from like Terra Station. Buffalo had one. In fact, I got a pair of drives kicking around here somewhere that came out of one of those Buffalo Link stations, I believe it's called. I can't find the damn device. My second NAS was a single drive device that was from a company called Airlink 101 that allowed you to put anywhere between whatever minimal IDE hard drive you had, I think up to either 500 gigs to a terabyte if it was SATA. IDE, SATA, what are these? That's the way you attach your hard drive to various storage. Um, back in the days when they had those wide ass ribbon cables, okay, that could be SCSI, not so wide. 40 wires across, or maybe 80 wires across, but it was 40 pins. That would have been your IDE. I think they topped out somewhere around 1 terabyte. I remember seeing at least one of those at one point. More commonly, you'll come across SATA. Yeah, I just happen to have one of these kicking around. And in fact, I've got more than one, which, hey, I thought about it. Basically, little, back in the old days, it was a red cable that connected and power goes to the other side. Nowadays, it can be like black, silver, blue, whatever. Getting distracted again. Now, back when I did my first NAS box, which I didn't even know the term NAS at the time, it was a file server. This was just a Windows XP machine that ran a dual core 64-bit AMD. I think it was an Athlon X2 3800 plus. Yes, I'm dating myself. Again, the hair should give it away. I think it was 4 gigs of DDR1 400 and a series of drives. The upside of owning an A8N SLI Premium, which Pete Hubbard, if you ever see this, thank you. I loved it so much that even after I sold the board, moved to the US, I managed to find myself another one. The upside of this board was it had 8 SATA ports. So 8 of this little connector right here. Now, be it as this is a 1 terabyte drive, as you clearly see, picture times 8. Yeah, you get a lot more storage that way. The way I used to do it was I used to do a specific drive for a specific share. I never got into what was called RAID, which was allowing you to put a bunch of drives together, or random array of inexpensive drives. I will tell you the eye has changed. Now these bloody things are expensive. You look up a 20 terabyte drive and you're looking for $500 just for the drive. Ouch. You look for an SSD of the same type and further ouch. Now, what is RAID? Considering you now have things that are specifically NAS based, like ZFS, which allows you to put a series of drives together, preferably like say 4 or 5, whatever. And it has what's called a parity drive, that the way it writes its data, that it writes across the drives, and it writes in a specific way that if you lose one drive, all the storage is still there. However, if you lose 2 drives, you start having problems. Back in the old days, originally with RAID, you had RAID 0, 2 drives, and it was called striping. So it wrote bit 1, bit 2, bit 3, bit 4, bit 5 bits. You double the storage, you increase the speed. However, dies. So is all the data. There is no what's called redundancy. RAID 1, mirroring. Everything that's on this drive is now on this drive. So this drive kicks. You still have it. Eventually, you get time passing, and as all things do, evolution happens, and you get RAID 5, which is a lot closer to that RAID Z thing. And so you have a series of drives, one of them dies, you're fine, which gives you time enough to go get another. What happens if two drives go? Well, that's where there's something like RAID 6. Same number of drives. Now you have two for parity. And this kind of goes on. You get into something called VDEVs, which allows you, I think it's up to 15 drives per VDEV. And whether you do it as RAID Z or RAID Z2, you can have one or two drives fail per VDEV. This is great if you're doing big storage, like say, hey, back to my homeland, not just Canada, but Nova Scotia. Find a company at the other end of the province called 45 Drives, and they make the XL, I think it's the XL60 or something like that, where you could do up to 60 drives, 15 times 4. So in each of those VDEVs, you can lose up to 2 drives, and there's 8 total that are parity drives that in the whole thing, well, they work per VDEV, but still, you get the idea. I'm sure at some point we will get to where there will be a VDEV of parity storage in and of itself, but I'm not holding my breath. Now, we've gotten into the drive concepts. There is the NAS itself. How do these sync up to your network? Well, you have a computer itself. It doesn't have to be a massive storehouse or powerhouse. It could be something like, say, one of those Intel Atoms that sip power but could crunch a fair amount of data. You get like a couple of sticks of RAM. Okay, these might be overkill for some of those early Atoms because this is like 8 16 gig kit, but I was hoping to fix a Mac earlier. Didn't work. Speaking of, that actually would have been a good idea. If a Mac back in the day had enough like spots to put drives, and you could buy expansion bays. So if you want to create your storage pool using RAID, ZFS, I'm sure there's a bunch of other ways of putting them together. My favorite is, I believe it's JOBD or just a bunch of disks, which basically it writes till this is full, then it writes till this is full, then it writes to the next one for as many as you got. To me, that is probably, without the redundancy, one of the best methods. However, it suffers because now you got to fill a drive to go to the next one. There is storage services called, or storage software, I should say, not services, called Casa OS that does this. That is its the second you start telling it, use these drives here, it'll use that as your storage pool, and it's JOBD. Makes it a very easy to use. Actually, that's what my second NAS in the rack behind me is. Uh, I have one that is, sadly, because I have never had drives big enough to move everything to, I have a pair of TV drives, a movie drive, a animated drive, a animated movie drive, a music drive for me, a music drive for my wife, a audiobook drive, a installation drive that has like It would be like my drivers, installations, game installs, and all that stuff. Unfortunately, about a year ago, I had a 6 terabyte drive that hit the floor. Hmm. That was a loss because I had drivers for hardware that companies don't exist anymore. So unless you can find where it was archived, archive.org is a really good example of backing up because that is backed up internet. Unfortunately, it has not got the whole thing yet, and that would actually take some space. Again, I'm meandering. I'm sorry. So, say you have an old computer lying around. I'm about to hate myself. Surprisingly, what I have lying around. Now, for an old hard drive, I have removable swapping drive or bays. Unfortunately, I have misplaced the key, so I can't just pull these out as they are, which is okay because they're not even hooked up on the inside. Nice thing about this case is it had a cool feature. These are 4 hot swap bays for hard drives. You take try that again. There is a, if I can get it, let it go. There we go. Slide the tray out, put the drive in, slide the tray back in, close. This actually allows you to do it while the drive or while there's power and it is active, which is hot swap. Yeah, we're learning some terms today, aren't we? Unfortunately, the Roseville, I believe it's Highmarsh case, doesn't seem to exist online anymore. And I'm fairly sure those people who own one won't give them up. What is the American phrase about guns? Over my dead body. That's how I feel about the case. However, I'm putting it down because it's heavy. So right there, I had 6 bays that I can easily populate with drives. Whether I set them up individually and share them across my network, or if I set up something like FreeNAS, TrueNAS, CasaOS, Unraid, just to name a few, of softwares that allow you to make these sort of servers. They also allow you to do other things like virtual machines because it is a shared pool that you can access through your network. With the virtual machines, you can set up virtual computers that do different tasks, which is another great idea for a NAS, is a virtual machine box. Proxmox, VMware, EXXI, there's a number of these as well. I may have gotten that last one wrong, sorry, but when you start getting into acronyms, well, GTFO. I hate trying to remember everything. And face it, at this point, I need slots for a few more for here. Insufficient memory. Constantly. It's a blinking light. I can actually see it in behind my eye, just flashing, flashing, flashing. And this is without playing Cyberpunk. This is just me as I am. However, I hope this gives you a good idea of what a NAS or network attached storage is. I'm partial to the concept of building my own because I have computers. As you just saw, I just picked one up off the floor. Yes, some of these are staged, but I do, in fact, have them just on the floor. There's a pair that are behind me, which are actually, for once, I am pointing the right way. In fact, here, let me do the wonderful thing of pointing it out to you. That small stack right there, there are two 4U computer cases. Okay, I'm going to put this back because you just got to zoom in on me, and nobody needs that shit. Line everything back up. Now, hopefully, this gives you a good idea, like I just said a moment ago. Um, with today's environment, they have things for SATA and whatnot. They have HBA cards, host bus adapter cards. They have dedicated RAID cards. They have a whole bunch of different ways of hooking up hard drives. They also have ones that are now NVMe based. So you can hook like high speed SSDs in, kind of like you would with your motherboard if you had I believe it's a U.2 connector, and they have newer ones coming out that I don't know the acronyms now because I can only keep up with so much. I hope this helps. I actually felt good when somebody said this actually helped explain something to their grandparents. So I hope to keep on the tradition. I hope it becomes a tradition, and then I can keep it up. It's kind of actually in this case, it applies more. When I moved to the US, my dad asked me if I could get him a prescription for Viagra. I told him that actually requires a doctor's prescription, but he could take ginkgo biloba so he could at least remember what it was like. Memory, storage. Got a rise out of him, I think. Ha ha ha. Admittedly, that was beyond bad. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm going to go put myself in a corner for a while. Um, Maybe within the next century or two, I'll forgive myself. However, uh, if you have ideas of things that you're not sure of, I'm kind of doing the idea of what is for now until I can actually get a good footing under me. A lot of people over the years have not known the proper terms for things, and I'd like to correct that. I believe it is more important to teach than to charge services for it, which is probably a good reason why I am mostly unemployed these days. A technician who teaches somebody else to fix their problems is inherently doomed. And well, I went from, hi, thank you for calling IT. Have you tried turning it off and turning it back on again? To someone actually started turning it off and turning it back on again, and things started working. Oops. Until such a time as I put up another video, fairly well.